I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flaming dead. Chowder hat's going on again today because my hair looks like shinola. Today, we're gonna talk about Fallout. Woo! Fallout! The new season came out recently. Something that I want to mention before I get into it, I haven't watched the Amazon show. I watched bits and pieces, but I haven't watched like the entire show. And I don't know that I intend to because I'm really weird about television shows and different things like that. If I get too stressed out with a show, it's not gonna be a good time for me. And Fallout stresses me out in a different way, in a way that I haven't been stressed out before. And so I have to, the show, mind you, the video game's not a problem. I can deal with shooting raiders. I can deal with death claws popping up out of nowhere. I can deal with the bugginess of 4. I just can't deal with the stressfulness of the show. So I've been taking it in like bite-sized pieces. I've been watching it an episode at a time, multiple weeks in between each episode. That being said, I also have I saw the haunted house that they did at Halloween Horror Nights last year for Fallout after watching like the first couple of episodes and stuff. Really good house, not necessarily scary. A lot of fun though. It was a whole lot of fun. And there was a lot of different Easter eggs in there too. Like they had the password minigame from like 3 and 4 on one of the terminals as you entered into the area. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. Something else that I want to mention is, no, I can't sit in a chair straight. I'm bi. And also, I don't have the same desk that was over here. So now we're filming at the desk that was behind me in the second to last video. And I still don't have a webcam yet. I gotta invest in that at some point. I gotta do something about that. Right now I'm trying to invest in my fursuit and work on that. So be patient with me. I'll get better audio quality and video quality at some point. I got a journal because I've got a lot I want to say about Fallout, and I want to make sure I'm not rambling, because I will ramble. You know I'm prone to that. Oh, by the way, should probably do this before anything. Spoilers for Fallout 4. You know what? Spoilers for every Fallout. All the Fallout. Every single thing. Though today, I want to talk about 4 in particular. Sorry to fans of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. That's the only game that I'm not going to spoil today. Yeah, sorry Brotherhood of Steel fans. Also, just sorry Brotherhood of Steel fans in general. Because I am gonna shit on the Brotherhood of Steel in 4. Not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of the Brotherhood. Also, content warning, we're gonna be talking about... How do I say this word in a way that YouTube's not gonna whoop my butt for? We're going to talk about recreational things that are bad for you. That are fictional versions of the recreational things that are bad for you. Yeah. As well as the abuse of those recreational things that are bad for you. As well as pew pew shooty bang bang. Fallout's got a lot of things in it that are very, can be potentially triggering for a lot of people. So keep that in mind. And in particular for the character, because I do have my own OC for Fallout. That's what this video is mostly going to be about. There's a lot of, again, the abuse of recreational things that are bad for you. There's going to be a lot of talk of that in this video. I might get my first strike! Yay! I should probably explain what Fallout is. It's a post-apocalyptic game set sometime after the bombs drop, I think in 2070 something? 2076? Yeah? That seems right. Sometime around like 2076 bombs drop, and that's where you get Fallout 76 from. Or Fallout 77. 77, right? That's another game that I'm not going to spoil. The game Fallout 76 is set like 20 years after the bombs fell. And it's based in like the Fallout shelter, like the Vault 76. And that's why it's called Fallout 76. Even though the bombs fell in 2077 in the canon. They could have just called the game 70. Anyways, that's my bad. I get confused. Sorry, Todd. The first two Fallout games were by Interplay. It's a top-down, point-and-click style RPG game, similar to something like Postal, but not as not really as gory, also not as problematic, I don't think. One of my favorite dialogue trees is in 2. It's Camp Navarro. Welcome to Camp Navarro! That entire thing is funny as hell. If you are into like newer Fallout and you haven't gotten around to like either playing or watching a playthrough of 1 and 2, get around to that, because it's got really interesting lore. Same lore that you expect in the rest of the series. It's literally the things that preceded, are the predecessors to 3, 4, and New Vegas. Some of the dialogue is just funny as hell. And Welcome to Camp Navarro is the funniest out of all the dialogue in 1 and 2, in my opinion. 3 and 4 are by Bethesda. You know them for The Elder Scrolls. You know them for Todd Howard. You know them for It Just Works. For the fans. Everything's for the fans. New Vegas, which is the fan favorite, all for good reason. It's great story, great DLC, good soundtrack, funny and interesting characters, interesting politics, too. Overall, very interesting game. That was made by Obsidian, I think around the same time as 3. Before New Vegas and before 3, there was a project called Van Buren, which is what eventually became 3, New Vegas, and Brotherhood of Steel. Brotherhood of Steel, though, was like Interplay's last-ditch effort right before they gave the rights to Obsidian and Bethesda to do New Vegas and 3. A little bit confusing. Van Buren eventually was canceled. New Vegas ends up being made. There's a whole internet horror project called Dr. Bosch that kind of plays into the idea that New Vegas was Van Buren. It's got a huge fan base. Fallout has a ton of different fans, especially now that we've got the Amazon show. There are mods made for 4 all the time. I mean, hell, in recent years we had Fallout London, which is a huge mod drop, and it's still getting updates and stuff. Other mods like Sim Settlements still get updates. As far as I'm aware, Sim Settlements still gets updates. I gotta do more research on these things, okay? I gotta do better. Y'all gotta hold me to that. Some mods are like silly mods where, you know, you put Shrek into the game as like all the death claws, or you change like a sound effect to the Seinfeld theme or something like that. Some mods fix the game. I would say that's kind of a problem when you have to rely on the community that plays the game to fix the game that you made. It should be working right when you release it. IMO, in my opinion. But it is cool that there are a lot of people who are very skilled at making mods just out in the open, making mods that just help things. And then there are some mods that make the game more interesting. You know, add different followers, add different quest lines, things like that. Skyrim, I'd say, has more of like the follower mods and like the cosmetic mods and things like that, whereas Fallout 4 has more tweaks. Like, oh, this mod helps tweak this gameplay mechanic, or this thing here. It helps add these animations, or these guns. A lot of mods for Fallout 4 are shooty bang bang mods. Tons of fan art, tons of fan fiction, things like Fallout Equestria. I should have mentioned Fallout Equestria in my pony video, but I think now that I'm doing the Fallout video, it's apt to bring it up here too. Fallout Equestria was a fan fiction made by K-Cat. It's one of the longest pieces of derivative fiction out there. Like, huge. Over, I believe, 620,000 words. That's a lot. That's a lot. And a lot of people really liked it because it blended the two worlds together really well. I never got around to reading all of it, and there's a lot of different iterations on Fallout Equestria. Fallout Equestria is what got me into Fallout, next to someone who is really close to me in my life, who is also a big fan of both Fallout and BioShock. And that same person is the person that got me into BioShock as well. Now I'm gonna explain Fallout 4. And I'm gonna explain my qualms with Fallout 4, even though I love the game. I love Fallout 4, but I hate the story. And the story drives me nuts. I write it down right on the notes here. It says, great characters, great world, great gunplay, horrible main quest line. Like, there's good lore in there. There's good lore in the side quests that you do. There's even good lore in the main quest line. Trying to figure out things about what happened to your son, and then, like, things getting crazier and crazier from there. Having to get, like, a teleporter and go into the Institute. There's some really interesting stuff there, but a lot of the main quest, if you're not doing any of the side quests, like any of the quests for like Minutemen, Brotherhood of Steel, things like that, they just kind of feel like fetchy in a way. Oh, you should go here. You should go there. You need to talk to Virgil. You need to go kill a courser. Talk to the courser that you kill. Then you gotta go back to Virgil. And then Virgil's like, okay, well, you gotta side with somebody. And then you side with somebody, and they're like, well, you gotta put that thing down. Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me, you know? You gotta put that thing down, and then you gotta go F around in the Institute. Like, there's a lot of fetchiness with it, and I will be honest, I haven't completed the storyline in my most recent playthrough of 4, but every single time I've played 4, the main quest line has always been the thing that, like, upsets me the most. And we're gonna talk about it. Main quest follows a sole survivor on their way to find Sean! Sean turns out to be kidnapped. Like, literally the first moments of the game, you go into a vault, you're put into cryostasis, and you get woke up out of cryostasis. You see your partner get shot, whether it's Nate or Nora. Baby gets removed out of the hands of your partner, Kellogg, who acts as like this, the guy that cleans up the messes that the Institute creates. You see him, and some other Institute folks run off with your child. You go around the Commonwealth to find him, and to find Sean. Join either the Goody Minutemen, the Railroad, or the Brotherhood of Steel. And I don't like the Brotherhood of Steel. The Railroad, I don't know, I'm starting to... Since I wrote these notes, I'm starting to kind of come around to the Railroad a little bit more. But I do have my qualms with the Railroad as well, and we'll get to that. Or you can join the bad guys, which are the Institute. Now, what is the Institute, you say? After I've talked about the Institute multiple times. Well, the Institute, they kidnap others and turn them into synths as like an experiment? It's not really implied at the beginning, like, why they make sense. Later on, it starts to come across that they're trying to pull an enclave in the way that they are trying to replace mankind and, like, make the world different, like, better in their eyes, because they believe that, like, oh, we've kind of effed ourselves over, so we might as well make all these different beings, all these different entities, and have them do stuff for us because they're easier to control than human beings. But there are synths that don't want to be controlled and are very upset about being created as a way to replace their human counterpart, and those synths are the synths that the Railroad tries to help reintegrate into society and make sure that they're doing okay. When it comes to the factions, the Minutemen get a lot of flack, and a lot of that's because Preston Garvey constantly sends you radiant quests and is like, there's a settlement that needs your help. There's a settlement there's a settlement, it needs your help, over and over and over again. And a lot of people are, like, get bugged with that. They don't like dealing with that. Like, when you mod them to be less annoying, they've got a decent story. The only qualm I have with them is there's not a chance for you to earn the title of general. Like, Preston just gives it to you instead of it being something that you have to work for. And I feel like that shouldn't have been written that way. It should be something you have to work for. It shouldn't have to be like, oh, well, you helped us out in Concord, now you're the general. And in a lot of ways too, like, I wish there was a way you could say, like, oh, I don't want to be the general, I'd like so-and-so to be the general. Like, if you've got a companion with you, I'd like them to be the general. Because my OC, my character, she's too irresponsible to be the general. She likes helping out the Minutemen, don't get me wrong, but she is not general material. So why would she be offered that opportunity right off the bat? And on top of that, why would, Nate and Nora be offered that opportunity right off the bat? Let's see, I wish you could take Quincy back in vanilla. I do wish there was a bigger quest line in Quincy, other than just like, oh, we gotta take this kid from the fridge back to his parents, and we gotta pass by all these gunners. I wish that was more something you could do. There is a way to mod it in there, like, oh, you can take back Quincy, but it's not like a big quest. I wish that could be the thing that makes you the general. You take back Quincy with the help of Preston and the rest of the Minutemen that you have, and he sees that you're willing to, like, fight for the Minutemen, and it's like, you know what? After these moments in Concord and Quincy and everything that you've done for the settlements that you've got now, I can see that you're wanting to put in the good fight for the Minutemen, you should be the general. And that could be when that conversation pops up. Or even when you retake the castle, but that's another thing for another day. I write down that you should get that title after the castle. The more that I think about it, pacing it where the castle is the big thing that you get after being general, like retaking Quincy be the thing that makes you the general. Like you do some Radiant quests in between Concord and Quincy, and then Radiant quests in between Quincy and the castle, and then the castle is like your big, here you go, this big settlement. And then from there you can do more Radiant quests, or do an idea that I had called like merger quests, where you can merge like factions together, or have them work together, or have them just absolutely tear each other apart. I feel like that should have been like a big thing. I hardly ever join the railroad. I feel like there's no, outside of the secrecy of it, like, oh, we have to sneak these synths from X to Y and from Y to Z. I feel like the railroad's stakes were not high enough. And I think that's due in part to the Institute not being as cruel as they should be. Like, especially Father, like the leader of the Institute. I wish he were a lot meaner. I wish he were a lot more cruel to our character, to like really test it, you know, which, spoiler, Father is Sean, and he made a synth, I think he made a synth version of himself or something of the sort, and wanted to see, he pulled a Cole Sprouse and just wanted to have a social experiment. He's like, yeah, I wanted to see what you would do. I wanted to see if you would come back for me. That to me is such a lame, like, premise for a villain. Oh, I just wanted to. I wanted you to want me. And, like, you're not gonna, like, try and kill me. You're not gonna, like, try and turn, like, other people that we've loved, or like, you know what? And this is an idea that I'll bring up again later when in terms of my character. But if it were the sole survivor, if it were Nate or Nora, what would have been even more messed up is if Father had turned, like, the other. So if you're playing as Nate, if he turned Nora into a synth to, like, again, mess with you, because he can tell you're trying to, like, get to the Institute and, you know, try and mess up his plans, especially if you're going towards a path of something that goes against the Institute, like having a synth made of your partner who you saw get pew pew shooty bang bang, like that to me is more messed up than, oh, well, I just wanted to see what you do. I have these birds, right? And they go, and they, like, look around and tell me what you're doing, you know, that I just I got my eyes on you. And I just want to see what you do. Like that's so lame. And because the stakes just aren't that high with the Institute, I feel like that's what undermines the railroad. The stakes aren't high with the railroad because the Institute is written the way it is. And on top of that, I think what also undermines the railroad, and hear me out, is that Deacon is not quite written the way that I feel he should be written. And this is something that me and my husband has played Fallout for far longer and is more aware of the lore than I am. Even he agrees that Deacon should have been like a Sans type character where you're not quite sure what their intentions are. And, like, you still aren't quite sure what their intentions are, even if you are, like, his partner and stuff, like his romantic partner and everything. You're still like, why are you lying with me? And instead he's just like, I'm just a chronic liar. Which, red flag, by the way. Huge red flag. I feel like he should have been a lot more important, and also just a lot more mysterious of a character than, oh, I just lie. I just lie. I just troll. I'm just trolling. I feel like he should have been a lot more like Sans, where he's like, he can be intimidating. And be like, oh yeah, so you were doing this, that, and the other. Like, talk about old quests that you had been on. Talk about the memory den. Like, that's the easiest place where you can see Deacon spying on you, is in Good Neighbor. Have him talk about that. Be like, oh yeah, I saw you hanging out with the mayor. What's the deal there? What's the deal there with the mayor? I get what they're saying by being the wayward point for all sense and being like this, again, like the Underground Railroad. The theming there is very clear. I feel like outside of the, like when you go into the Institute and they find out that there's more to the Institute than what firepower they have, there should be other ways that you can combine the Railroad with the Minutemen and like work together. Again, this idea of merge quests where you can like have communication set up between Railroad and Minutemen. I also think there should be an actual rail system in the game, but that would be way too hard to implement. Have an actual railroad, you know, set up, have supply chains and everything. That way the caravans like don't have to worry about being hijacked, unless they worry about being train jacked, and then you have to deal with that. That would have been a cool thing to implement, but I'm sure that would have been a lot of coding. Another thing too is I feel like there should be a way to complete like the Institute and going against the Institute with the Railroad and the Railroad only. Like there should be a way to build up the Railroad's firepower, like back to what it was, similar to the way that you do with the Minutemen. There's a lot of really big missed opportunities with the Railroad, and it disappoints me for them. And yeah, I mentioned here, another idea would be for all factions to interact directly before the fight with the Institute, have a merger quest to try and bring them together, or tear them apart, like stand your ground with one team over the other. And I think Railroad in particular should have had a similar impact to the Minutemen. And then that way too, you can make like safe houses within your settlements. This is another thing too. You could, through a merge, you can make safe houses within your settlements for synths to go to. As like safe spaces for them to like transfer onward. I feel like they missed a spot where you could help like already established settlements that you don't own, convince them, for example, Diamond City, convince them to be more accepting of synths and educate them on not really what synths are, but on how they're treated and how the Institute mistreats them as well. Which feels like a very Railroad thing to do, even though, yeah, they're you know, live in secrecy, things like that. You could have a couple of runners, like Drummer Boy, be the educators from the Railroad, and that would convince more people to join the Railroad. I fixed it! I fixed your art! But that could convince more people to join the Railroad, and they'd be like, oh, I didn't think of synths in that way. I kind of am interested in the Railroad now, and I want to help with what they're doing. And then you'd have more safe spaces. Let's talk Brotherhood of Steel. Not the video game. Not that. Well, I don't think we'll ever talk about that. The actual faction. So, a lot of folks know Brotherhood of Steel through the Amazon series. Oh, they're the Brotherhood. They're kind of dickish, and they have like all this like orderly stuff about them. They are like the paladins of the Wasteland. They're there to help the Wasteland recover and have like a militia again. They are in my opinion, and this is someone who thinks the Enclave's kind of funny. I have a soft spot for the Enclave. The Brotherhood of Steel feels like Enclave 2.0 in the other direction. In the way that the Institute also feels like Enclave 2.0 in another direction. So you've got two separate sides of the spectrum, and they're both the Enclave, but in different ways. You've got Enclave in the way that they want to replace everything in the Wasteland with their own thing, and Enclave in the way that they have a really powerful militia and want to kind of militarize the Wasteland. And they're very strict, and they're very hard-nosed, and they're very to the books, and I can't stand the Brotherhood. They're also like a bad path in 4. A lot of the Commonwealth doesn't see the point in having the Brotherhood there. They don't really even want the Brotherhood there. On top of that, like, with the exception of Paladin Dance, who tries to understand, like, he might be a little bit, again, to the books, and a little bit dumb in places. He tries to understand the things around him and tries to get to know the things around him. But a lot of the opinion of everyone else in the Commonwealth, they all are like, yeah, fuck the Brotherhood. Me and my homies hate the Brotherhood. You know, that's how they are. And I don't blame them, because you've got all of the Brotherhood doing multiple different missions, trying to take different technology. And of course it's Institute technology, but that could be, you know, something in line with the Railroad. If you did do like idea for a mod, if anyone wants to take this, have a merge quest where you're a part of the Brotherhood and the Railroad, and you're educating both on each other, and decide, hey, what if the Railroad uses some of the technology that we've collected to infiltrate the Institute? And then they come to like a better understanding about what they're doing and why they've got that technology. Because otherwise, it just seems like an Enclave where they're taking stuff from the Wasteland and being like, it's ours now. That's what the Brotherhood of Steel feels like. And I can't stand the Brotherhood. I don't like the Brotherhood. A lot of folks like their story for nostalgia reasons, like, oh, I was in the Brotherhood in 3, and the Lion's Pride and stuff. And the Lion's Pride is great. Yeah, as someone who plays, like, chaotic good in a lot of different RPGs, I don't like the Brotherhood. I don't like the Brotherhood in 4 in particular. At least they got the Pridwin and Liberty Prime. Big robot. Enclave are like gone. Rest in peace. In my notes, I go on to kind of talk about like, oh, can't stand the Institute. They could be a lot better than they are. Same whole thing with the Cole Sprouse experiment, and I, mentioned that BT Dubs, by the way, Sean was just trying to see what you would do, because he's now the old recluse leader of the Institute, and I hate that. And so I made my own version of Fallout Story, and this is where we're going to get a long video, and I mean a long video out of this. So bear with me as I talk about Dorothy B. Loney, aka my Sona for Fallout. She is based off of The Wizard of Oz and other Wizard of Oz related media, and in particular is inspired by the absolute train wreck that the production of the MGM movie Wizard of Oz was. And this is also something that I want to preface before I do go into Dorothy's story, is I am not the only person that has seen parallels between Fallout 4 and the Wizard of Oz. Fallout 4's story is very similar to that of the Wizard of Oz. So I just made it more obvious. With Dorothy. I might put up some pictures of Dorothy up here, as well as her canon companions. It goes like this. Dorothy lived in Kansas with her father. Together they owned a small farm with a decent looking house compared to the rest of the wasteland. Very similar to the house near Grey Garden. If this was ever made into a mod, she would have like recollections, like after going from Grey Garden into the house, she would have like recollections of her own house and what life was like on a farm. Raiders didn't like how prosperous this was and how like good they were having it, and asked for a high sum of caps or else their land would be destroyed and they'd be killed. So basically holding their land at ransom, being like, hey, we're gonna take all this stuff and also you owe us money just because. Dorothy used to fix some bots and some different tech on the farm. Nothing super skilled yet, but she was pretty well versed in how things work and understands how things kind of are put together and scrapped together. This would explain why she's able to work on something like power armor or something like shooty shooty pew pew. The last few remnants of a working enclave eventually set up shop around the same time in Kansas nearby the farm, and they offer money for joining and working for them. Dorothy didn't care for, nor does she agree with, their ideals, but it's the only way for her to make the money needed for the ransom. When she goes in to apply, it turns out the only job she could get was for a power armor mechanic, and she wasn't sure if she could really work on power armor because, that's a lot. So she takes some mentats before the interview, cheeses the interview, and ends up getting hired. She forms a dependency on mentats during her time in the Enclave. As a mechanic, she works all day and night, trying to get as many caps as possible, even doing some odd jobs to kill off some feral ghouls and so on in the wasteland. At this point, she's too afraid of raiders to kill them or to even go after them, and is worried that if she were to go out and help the Enclave in those sorts of missions, they would notice her, go after her father, and kill him. This goes on for about 2 or 3 months as the ransom date gets closer. Before the day of the ransom, she took some scraps of old power armor to make her own Exo-1 suit. This is known as the Yellow Brick Road. As I have drawn it, I need to redraw it, and I also need to redraw her Gatling gun that she has with it. It's named for its radiant yellow appearance. In between working on Yellow Brick Road and her odd jobs, she would read The Wizard of Oz in her own time. She had a copy of, in particular, the book where Dorothy goes out and explores and everything, but there's a bunch of missing pages, and an entire chapter is just completely gone out of the ending of the book. The copy she has, again, very war-torn, and is missing the entire last 3 chapters, but outside of the mentats, it's her only reprieve. And I can imagine what reading that on mentats would be. She herself is inspired by the book to continue her work. It would also be neat, this is something that isn't in vanilla game as far as I know. It would be really cool if you could scrap different parts of power armor. It should be noted that in order for her to make the Yellow Brick Road Exo-1 suit, she had to steal parts here and there from the Enclave while working on their suits, causing the suits to malfunction, some to a deadly extent. So literally, mid-mission, somebody could be in a set of XO1 armor, and it malfunctions, and it spring locks them. So many of these malfunctions started to pile up that they started to become suspicious of Dorothy. On the day the ransom was due, Dorothy was kind of nodding off, but was really high off her rocker in her new suit. And she had decided that that day was going to be the day that she killed that she would kill the raiders. She would go in her power armor, get them all out, and then they wouldn't have to deal with the raiders anymore. The Enclave also decided that that was the day that they were going to question and interrogate Dorothy. But at that point, like, they hadn't gone up to her and scheduled that and stuff within the day. This causes a chase. Dorothy is imagining that the Enclave is like, there's something about them, they're coming after her, and she's like, oh, they want to steal my armor, that's why they're coming after me. I'm in different clothing from the start of the video. Had to move some stuff around on my iPad, again, send the videos that I had already recorded onto the computer, and then wait hours for that to upload onto like a drive, and then stuff. I had to do stuff. At the same time that this chase is happening, at the same time that she's like, oh shit, they're gonna steal my armor. Brotherhood of Steel launches into a full-blown sting operation against the Enclave. Most of the Brotherhood don't know, oh, this is another thing too, is it's a combination between two different sections of the Brotherhood. So like one department, or like one set of departments and then another set, can't remember what it's called. Husband's on the toilet, so I'll ask him when he gets off the loo. But they combine into one for this mission, or combine multiple paladins from their operations into this mission. And we'll get to how that relates to the operations up in the Commonwealth here shortly, because the whole thing with how it's set up in there is like, oh, the Brotherhood's already there, but it doesn't make sense because they have like to get Paladin Dance to there and all that jazz. There's a mod that like helped with the continuity of that, so after you help Paladin Dance, that's when the Brotherhood start coming up, and that makes more sense to me. So instead of them being like right there in the Commonwealth, for Dorothy's sake, she ends up at some point getting lumped in with Paladin Dance as a way of like, oh, Dance is a responsible paladin, we'll throw this random citizen with him, see if he can figure her out. So they go into a sting operation. Most of the Brotherhood at this point don't know that Dorothy is underneath all of that power armor, and assume that she's like a citizen who had gotten the XO1 armor, and the Enclave is just trying to interrogate her or steal that armor from her, which is also kind of a point of contention with the Brotherhood later on. They really like that she's smart, and they like that she can make all this armor and stuff, and would like her to update their armor. But also there's a part of the Brotherhood who know that she was a previous Enclave member and feel like she's better off dead. So in her story, there's a lot of divide in the Brotherhood of Steel over this one this one drifter. They chase after the Enclave, and the Enclave is trying to chase after her. And the Brotherhood are trying to kind of save her because they assume that she's someone who's... you get it. When the Brotherhood of Steel do find Dorothy again later in the Commonwealth, this is something I already mentioned, they realize she's the Enclave's mechanic, which causes infighting in the Brotherhood of Steel on whether she should die because she used to be in the Enclave, or join them as one of their scribes. Canonically, she declines both of these offers, but of course if this were like a mod or something, you could obviously like join the Brotherhood as Dorothy. I don't know that Dorothy as a character would enjoy that though, and would probably get really pissed off constantly with them. So there'd be a lot of really funny, snarky remarks in there. Eventually, she's picked up in a vertibird. I say in the Pridwin, but it's in a vertibird. Pridwin's fucking huge! It's big! A big ship. Vertibirds are smaller, teenier ships. So, picked up in a vertibird. As I had stated earlier, she ends up getting rerouted with Dance, because Dance at this point is supposed to help work on like, oh, we need you in the Commonwealth to figure out what, you get the whole quest, figure out what's going on. There's like this big beep 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 and we need to have the Brotherhood there and you need to signal us to get over there. And so Paladin Dance gets sent over there, and in the midst of that conversation, there's another conversation being had where they're like, there's this lady in this giant thing of power armor, and she needs, she's screaming a lot, mind you, at this point. She thinks she's being, like, picked up by something. And in her head, she's assuming she's being picked up by a tornado, because she can see the vertibirds, like, going up and everything, and there's dust and there's wind everywhere. And they're talking with Paladin Dance. Dance, can you handle this lady? And he's like, sure, I'll try. They pick her up in the vertibird, and she's just screaming the entire time in the vertibird, ah, ah, like that, because she thinks she's being picked up by a tornado and being sent somewhere else. It's literally like The Wizard of Oz, where house gets picked up, and she gets put into the land of Oz. Another thing too, another reason why they leave her with Dance is because they're like, we could really use some of this technology in the Commonwealth. This would be something that you would find out later. All of this stuff would be things that you find out later, because when you would start, you would just assume, or Dorothy would just assume, that she's just been dropped off by a tornado. She wonders how she got there, and that's how you kind of figure out the whole thing with the Brotherhood of Steel. You can help out Dance, that sort of thing. And then through them, you start getting inklings on what they were trying to do. But part of the reason why they wanted her to go with Dance to the Commonwealth is because they figured that, oh, we could use that armor. And if this is someone who's very skilled at what they're doing, then we could use them as well. The armor, the Yellow Brick Road armor has different components on it that aren't on typical like XO1 armor. So, for example, she has a power fist attached to one side of the armor that you can kind of slip your hand out and hold on to like different guns and stuff. Or you could slip your hand in and use the power fist as is. There's also like toe plating on the feet of the power armor to have a better balance, as well as better like grip around like heavy terrains like hills and stuff. She figured she would have to climb through like different structures and everything in order to get to the raiders. That's why there's kind of toe claws on it. But the Brotherhood of Steel see these different attributes as they're chasing her, and now that they finally have her like in a safe spot, they're able to really get a look at this armor, and they're like, oh, this is actually crafted pretty well for it looking as shoddy as it is. And that's another reason why they pick her up and bring her to the Commonwealth. But Dance and the rest of the crew cannot stand her screaming the entire time. Dance the entire time is trying to calm her down, and the rest of the team are like, just kick her out. And so finally, that's when this then induces a Chems-induced hallucination of her believing wholeheartedly that she was swept up in a tornado and dropped off in the Commonwealth in front of the Red Rocket Station by Sanctuary. And that is when the game starts for her, for Dorothy. By the Red Rocket Station, there's someone who was caught in between the garage door of the Red Rocket Station. Like, you can see like half of their body hanging out, and if you open it, you see like the rest of their body on the other side. Something bad happened at the Red Rocket Station. Similar to how in The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch of the East gets smushed by the house, and that's how Dorothy gets the red slippers. My Dorothy gets her main outfit that she wears for a good portion of the game. She gets her outfit from the Red Rocket Station and uses the Red Rocket Station for a long time until she gets like a different settlement. For example, until she gets the castle, or she gets put on the Prydwen, that sort of thing. At this point, because she's just dropped off from the vertibird, they literally hover as close as they can to Red Rocket and just shove her off. And she very dramatically clunk, 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 clunk by the Red Rocket Station. Because of the falling and the clunking and the everything, her power armor ends up very broken. And so you don't get to use the power armor at the very beginning of the game like you do in Concord or anything like that. So you have to fix it over time. This is also something that peeved me, that didn't make sense to me when playing as like Nora, for example. Because Nora, I think, was like a lawyer before being frozen in time and stuff. And Nate was actually a part of like the war and had gotten, I think, laid off or something like that. It makes sense for him to know how power armor works and how to fix it and how to work on it. It doesn't make sense for Nora to know how to work on it, but it'll make sense for Dorothy to know that she's got a mentats problem. And she's also just genuinely good with mechanics, and if she didn't have that problem, she would probably figure it out pretty fast. But she did it because of the circumstances. You have to repair the power armor over time, rather than having the power armor right off the bat. And so you also have to like scrounge for different salvages and stuff in order to piece it back together. You can use different armor parts if you wanted to use, again, similar to how the game works now. If you wanted to use like T50 or T51 armor on different parts, I wouldn't. XO1. The reason why it's XO1 armor is because XO1 armor is my favorite. You could use different armor parts if you wanted to. If you wanted to change the helmet, you wanted to change the armor entirely, you could. You could feasibly work on a completely different Yellow Brick Road armor on the different armor sets, if that makes sense. Like, that would be a capability for you to do. And I'm certain you could even, like, repaint it to do different paint jobs, like in the game, too. And it says here, she finds an outfit with red slippers or boots. They're red boots. Part of the boots are supposed to lead you to Diamond City in a way, to get you inclined of, like, where was this person from? Like, there's a note on them and everything talking about Diamond City, talking about Sanctuary, that sort of thing. The boots themselves have this intricate, like, design on them that has a diamond on them, and on the front of the boot is kind of this ornate design in a red metal. I'd say probably, like, some kind of dyed metal to make it look really pretty. But it looks impractical, but it can be practical because they're kind of like metal boots. You could probably even add like a kicking mechanic. Kick people with your red boots. You know how you got Courier 6, you've got the Sole Survivor. Dorothy would be the Lost Drifter because look at the circumstances she's in. She's, again, has this dependency on mentats and is now wandering this completely alien part of the US to her and has no clue what's happening at her home, is worried about her father, is worried about the whole thing with the Raiders. That becomes her driving point, is like, I want to go home and I want to make sure my dad's okay, but also I'm making a new home here in the Commonwealth and I don't want to leave that. So this becomes an inner struggle with Dorothy throughout gameplay. Which again, I feel like is better than my son! But there's all these other things I could do! And there's also all these cuties around me! So... I feel like that is a better character struggle for your main character to go through rather than I'll F around and find out because I F them kids. Start of the game. She meanders up to Sanctuary to find answers on where she is after reading the note that she gets from the person that was smushed. Dogmeat is already there. It's assumed that the person that got smushed was Dogmeat's owner, or someone that Dogmeat was helping before, and now that Dogmeat's without an owner or without someone to follow, Dogmeat decides to follow Dorothy. Cogsworth mistakes Dorothy for Mum in a grateful and relieved tone, is constantly talking, oh Mum, 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 Mum. He would do the opposite if you were playing male, which, by the way, Dorothy's brother would be who you would play in her stead if you wanted to play male, and his name canonically is Danny. So you've got Danny and Dorothy, the same way you've got like Nate and Nora, that sort of thing. She assures us she's not Mum, and is like, what the fuck are you calling me Mum for? And is overall confused about what's going on. During this, you do the Minutemen quest. He's like, oh, well maybe you could go down to Diamond City. You gotta go through Concord in order to get there, and I'm sorry for mistaking you, and it's been forever. I miss everybody. He does mention that Master, okay, again, if you're playing as Dorothy, he mentions that Nate, like, passed by in a quick huff and didn't say much to him, even though he was trying to signal him down, and that he would really like it if you could go find Nate for him. So that becomes your kind of goal for the start, is like, okay, I could probably go after this guy to help out this robot, see if I could find where this Nate guy is, and if I can't find Nate, then I can tell him, and then I can go about my day. At the same time, gives Dorothy a chance to ruminate of like, okay, so this is kind of a weird world. Maybe I am in Oz. You also, as a character, suffer withdrawal symptoms. So you have to take chems every now and again in order to, like, even yourself out. You could, as a player, wean off of these things, or you could perpetuate her problems and make them worse. Because I feel like chems in the game, you don't get a bad enough time with the chem mechanics. And I wanted to give you a hard time. Oh yeah, and this is another thing too, is she mentions to Cogsworth that she's just trying to find info on her dad. Just needs to know that he's okay, if he is alive at all, that sort of thing. Cogsworth talks about hearing about this place called Diamond City, and maybe they've got some info, but for now to head to Concord because there should be someone to help in Concord. That's when you do the whole Minutemen quest, and Preston's like, hey, you can join the Minutemen if you want. That was pretty cool what you did out in Concord. Thank you. You don't get the power armor from the vertibird in Concord, by the way, but you do get the minigun. So you're forwarded to Nick before Nate gets to Nick. You have Nick's quest like usual. He becomes the Tin Man. Each of her companions, her canon companions, all resemble the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion. And Dogmeat, of course, is Toto. I do have a chart back here of other companions that can match those three categories. The only two that I couldn't really fit anywhere is X6 and Longfellow. I'm gonna have to look through more of the lore. And y'all can debate on this chart. I'll probably leave a picture up of this chart here in the video right now and later. You can debate on that, because I myself am not too sure that I am 100% about this list, aside from the top line, which is Nick Valentine as the Tin Man, Hancock as the Scarecrow, and McCready as the Cowardly Lion. And of course, Dog-Me as Toto. Nick becomes the Tin Man to Dorothy, and she says that aloud too, multiple times throughout her travels. Nick is not always fond of being called that, but it's something that they kind of bond over time. After saving Nick and getting clues on your dad, that's when you get some quests related to Nate. Nate isn't your character in this story. It's more so a caricature of the Nate that you do play. Like, a very overly dramatized version of the Nate that you play in 4. Though this Nate is a lot more pissed off, peeved. He's kind of whiny. But yeah, you don't yet meet him when you get Nick. So you're just kind of hearing murmurs about him. You're seeing glimpses of him similar to Deacon, and you get thrown into a couple of dead ends as well, and Nick remarks, "We can pick this up later." Kellogg's quest goes on as normal after finding Nora's holotape in the vault, this time focusing on who the Institute is and finding Nate instead of Sean. After the whole Kellogg situation, that's usually when I enter into Good Neighbor. I don't go into Good Neighbor before then. They walk in to get some more leads and to get some more stuff off of Kellogg and figure all that out. Kellogg, his memories strike up memories in Dorothy's own brain, so you get glimpses between segments of Kellogg talking, of Dorothy talking. You won't see anything of Dorothy's, but she'll just kind of mention it. Kellogg reminds Dorothy a little bit of herself, and so it's a very interesting situation. The moment she enters into Good Neighbor, you get Hancock's intro, and canonically, she is in love. She falls head over heels in love with the school. Cue Never Before and Never Again from the Muppet movie. She's just like, whoa, oh, wow, oh, woo. That's what happens to Dorothy when she sees Hancock the first time. Hancock remarks to her, like, "Oh, welcome, sorry about that. I had to get my hands a little dirty." When you go into Good Neighbor, you find out that Nate is working with Bobby No-Nos to steal from the mayor. And since Dorothy's like, "That's my man, I want to figure out how I can help this guy." You don't know that they're stealing from the mayor, but you get an inkling that something's gonna happen. So you report it to some of the guards, and the guards are like, oh, Bobby No-Nos must be up to something then. We ought to keep, patrol. If you want to help and stuff, then talk to Fahrenheit. So you get to talk to Fahrenheit more and get more development with Fahrenheit, which, again, is also something that I feel like you don't get a lot of in the vanilla game. Even in the game files itself, it's kind of confusing on who Fahrenheit is in relation to Hancock. Is she a lover? Is she a daughter? What is she? It's implied that she's a lover, but you get to talk to Fahrenheit more and kind of figure out what's going on there. Fahrenheit appreciates the extra help as well, and appreciates you for catching some of the notes about Bobby. Even over the radio, you hear word, after you find a note near Bobby No-Nos's, door, you hear word of a jailbreak out in Diamond City on the radio. Dorothy helps out Fahrenheit stake out the operation. Turns out, Nate ditched at the sign of feral ghouls. So the moment they get through, they're like, okay, it's minor alerts, it's whatever. You get to feral ghouls, he's like, okay, I'm done. And then from there, you can either kill Bobby No-Nos or, try to persuade and all that jazz. Same thing all the same stuff happens. We get Hancock like normal. Dorothy's all swoony, and Hancock becomes the Scarecrow. It should be noted that Nick, for her, reminds her of something stable, reminds her of stability, and kind of keeps her on track. Hancock reminds her of herself. F it, we ball. They take chems together. There. It's late in the video anyways, and I'm probably not gonna get caught there. And so the two are able to kind of talk more about like their problems with each other and relate to one another in that way. And you get a lot more dialogue with Hancock through that. That's something that I love Hancock, okay? I want to be clear. This is my man. This is my man. I love him so much. His concept art. I love him. I love him so much. His concept art, I think they should have gone more towards like the concept idea of what he looked like rather than what they made him look like. I get that they wanted to make him look closer to the ghouls than not, but considering his story and everything, I feel like he would be in this weird state between not really ghoul but not really human either. And that's why in a lot of my drawings of him, it more looks like the Handsome Hancock mod scene here than it does the actual Hancock scene in vanilla. Though, I like him too. I like the way that he looks there too. I have a couple of buttons too that I got. You know what, let me take a moment to show you my buttons. Hold on. Okay. Damn. Struggling. I have That's My Emotional Support War Criminal. And then I also have Best Dressed in Blood for an Eat-A bag that I'm making themed around Hancock. Very excited for that. So, fun stuff. I love Hancock. Anyways, back to the thing. I've got, what, a couple more pages left? Let me speed run this shit. Alright, Nick recommends the Memory Den. You go into the Memory Den, the whole thing with that. Again, I wrote this before my recent playthrough. I'd say it's more so she looks through Kellogg's memories and starts to kind of talk between them about, oh, this reminds me of something in my own life. This is where my notes get really muddled. I believe that before this moment, either before the Kellogg thing or after the Kellogg thing, you can talk to the Brotherhood of Steel. Like, you can talk to Dance directly. If you want the Brotherhood of Steel there, you can help him with his quest, or you can just completely deny him of that quest and not have the Brotherhood of Steel in there at all and just work with the Minutemen and the Railroad to help out the Commonwealth. But either way, you do get a chance to talk to Dance about everything that had happened, and during this moment, you could have a chance to essentially plead to go home. The Brotherhood of Steel will not take you home, though, because so many of them are at odds about you, so they don't really feel like, oh no, we can use you, or no, we want to kill you, so therefore, no, we're not going to take you home. This will make it harder later on if you wanted to do a merger quest between, like, the Brotherhood and any of the other factions. It's like really high charisma checks. At some point, Hancock recommends hiring an extra hand for the quest, for, like, different quests and stuff. This leads us to meet MacCready, and MacCready turns into the Cowardly Lion. When you do confront Nate, he's on the side of the Institute and is annoyed with how we've been interfering in his plans of finding Sean. We took his detective, had to go through Good Neighbor without the graces of his mayor, and couldn't even hire his bodyguard if you have Dorothy's, like, canon crew. And we even took his dog. He's like, you took my mayor, you took my dog, you took everybody. And it becomes this whole fight. You do see Nate again after killing him, but it's not the same Nate. And after you kill Nate, that pisses off the Institute, because again, Sean was wanting to pull this friggin' experiment, and you failed it by entering in and just doing all that, and now he's mad. He's like, oh, well, great. And so he starts playing worse and worse tricks on you, including making a synth out of Dorothy's dad. Has to work with the Raiders out in Kansas, has to do a bunch of communication, and yeah, ends up doing that to you just to mess with you, and also to try and lure you away from your crew, and again, take you out. Not in the nice, going on a date way. MacCready! Going back to MacCready, his affinity would work a little bit different from Vanilla, because the way it works right now annoys the F out of me. He would be annoyed with all the goody two-shoes stuff in the start, and then after you help him with his son and go through his quest line of like making sure that his son's okay, he starts to warm up to your good deeds and starts to become a better person with you. MacCready to Dorothy is like a brother, and in every aspect he annoys the frick out of her, and so the two often butt heads over things, bringing Nick in to be like, can you two quit it, please? Or Hancock being like, MacCready, stop it. Changes in dialogue once Dorothy gets with Hancock, checking on him more often. So like in battle, if he's down, like, ah, no, going after him. In the same way that like other team members were like, hey, dog meat's down, like that sort of thing. Let's see, you have the ability to become General of the Minutemen, or pass the responsibility to one of your companions after the castle quest, or again, after Quincy has been completed and unlocked. So once Quincy happens, he's like, hey, we're thinking about appointing you as the general. You can be like, actually, I want this guy to be the general. You point to Strong or someone. That would be really funny. That would be really interesting. That would be a lot of fun. And he could finally find the milk of human kindness. Oh, and that's another thing, is Hancock doesn't have a companion quest. I would give him a companion quest. I feel like we need to know more about this man. Or at least I want to know more about this man, okay? I want to know more about this ghoul. Anyways, if had a high enough affinity with all the companions and at the same time the castle is unlocked, a party scenario will happen and she will dance with her romantic partner. If you don't have any of them as a romantic partner, she can just go dancing with herself and just have a blast, that sort of thing. And then all the fellas or all the companions can be like, hey man, I kind of want to dance. I kind of want to go on the floor and shake it. But they have like a little, just a moment of reprieve, like in the wasteland, that you don't often get to see. The Minutemen feel like they have succeeded in that moment. Again, her canon storyline focuses around the Minutemen a whole lot. Dorothy's story and canon are still being worked on. All of this is just rough draft stuff. I can't make mods. I'm not technically inclined in that way. After this video, I'm definitely going to get a friggin' webcam. I'm about to finish up this video now, so I might as well just, you know, call it here. I wanted to tell you guys that, like, if any of this stuff with Dorothy interests you at all, if you find it fascinating and you're technically inclined and you'd like to make a mod, by all means let me know. I would love to offer art. I'd be down for voice acting and everything for her. I have a voice in mind for her. Of course, if someone else can do it better than me, while also remaining in that same vision, I would be down with that too. I want to extend that offer to the rest of the Fallout fandom. If that interests you, or if you want to make art of Dorothy too, I'll do my best to have some, like a ref sheet for her or something finished up at some point. Hold me to that. I'm crazy busy right now, and I didn't expect to be this busy, but I am. It's great. Don't get me wrong. I love working on stuff, but it is a lot. Some last minute things. I'm not the only person who has had this Wizard of Oz idea. There are other people, I believe, who have their own OCs for Fallout 4 who are also very similar to the whole ideas that I have. But I have a lot of fun with this. I've had a lot of fun coming up with these ideas, just mouthing off about them. Even with all the technical issues I've had today, I've had a lot of fun with this. And again, I would love to work with any mod makers out there who would be interested in something like this to F around with Fallout 4 and make the story a little bit different. That would be a major undertaking. It would be something very complicated, I believe, unless modding is just not as complicated as I've perceived it to be. But a person can dream, right? That's all for my notes. Again, if you want to see the chart, I'll put it up here now as well. You can debate on who is like what character, so on and so forth. Fallout. Cool. I love Fallout. I love Hancock. And I have got to get a webcam. Those are my thoughts. Oh, and having a mod for Dorothy would be cool. And those are all my thoughts. Next video. There's another one. Another thought of mine. I could do Wizard 101. I know I keep putting off Hello Kitty Online. That's because that's a big one. And I kind of want to save Hello Kitty Online now for like a big occasion. Wizard 101, I think, is going to be the next one that I do. This one was a good one. Bye.